Welcome to Mr. Hutchings History, where the past comes alive. Let's dive into today's story.
Okay, so get ready, because today we're going to dig into a moment that really shifted things, like a turning point in history, a moment that ignited a whole movement and changed how things worked in America when it comes to civil rights. The Montgomery Bus Boycott.
And you know what's really interesting about this? It's not just going back in time for a history lesson. It's like a master class in how to make a change happen, how to use activism strategically, and how people coming together can make a real difference. We're going to see how everyday people, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., challenged a system that many folks thought they could never change.
I love that, a master class. And when we talk about challenging the system, we got to talk about Rosa Parks. Everyone knows she refused to give up her seat on that bus, but was it really just about, being tired that day?
Not a chance. See, what a lot of folks don't realize is that this was planned. It was an act of defiance, but it was planned. Rosa Parks was a seasoned activist. Oh, she was involved with the NAACP. Yeah, her arrest was strategically chosen. Think about that. To really challenge, to shake the foundation of those segregation laws.
Hold on. So you're saying the NAACP was waiting for the right moment to make a statement, and Rosa Parks' arrest, as awful as it was, gave them that opportunity.
Exactly. They knew this could be huge, that this could be the thing that got a movement going, and they were ready. They were prepared to make that happen.
And ignited this, like that one action, that one act of defiance just set everything ablaze. I mean, talk about a chain reaction. So how did this boycott actually work? Did everyone just completely stop riding the buses?
Pretty much. For over a year, 381 days to be exact, the Black community in Montgomery they boycotted the buses. Can you imagine how committed they were? They walked, they carpooled. Some people even started using horses and mules to get around.
Horses and mules. Seriously. Wow. That's commitment. They really hit them where it hurt. Right. The bus company, their wallets.
Oh, absolutely. 75% of their revenue came from Black riders. This boycott, this wasn't just a minor inconvenience. This was a huge financial hit.
It's amazing to me to think about how united they were, the willpower to keep that boycott going for so long. What do you think kept them going? Was it anger? Frustration?
Well, I'm sure those feelings were there, but it was more than that, much deeper. Dignity. Martin Luther King Jr., he was inspired by Gandhi, and he made nonviolence the core of the movement.
It's powerful to think about, to face hate with peace. It's like you said, it wasn't about inconvenience. It was about something bigger. About dignity and respect.
Exactly. That's what made the boycott so impactful. The stark contrast. You had peaceful protesters and then the often really violent opposition. That's what caught the nation's attention. It shone a light on how wrong segregation was, and it forced people to see the reality, the inequality right here in America.
So this wasn't just about changing minds. It became a legal fight too, right? Didn't this whole thing, the Montgomery Bus Boycott, end up in the Supreme Court?
Oh, absolutely. Months and months of activism, legal challenges, and it landed right on the steps of the highest court in the country. Browder v. Gayle, that was the case. And this decision, it could have changed everything about segregation everywhere.
Wow, talk about pressure. What was it like waiting for that verdict? Were people hopeful or more on edge?
Oh, man. The tension must have been incredible. Think about it. 381 days of boycotts, protests, fighting in court, and everyone in Montgomery, maybe the whole nation, holding their breath. And then, November 13th, 1956, the Supreme Court, they made their decision. Big day.
Come on, don't leave me hanging. What happened?
They ruled segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. Huge victory, not just for Montgomery, but for the whole civil rights movement.
So this was way bigger than just bus seats at that point, wasn't it? It was like striking down segregation itself.
Exactly. The court said, straight up, that segregation violated the 14th Amendment, the part about equal protection. That amendment says everyone gets treated equally under the law, and segregation completely went against that.
Huge turning point. So they were ripping out the foundation that segregation was built on, at least when it came to public transportation. Did this lead to other changes? What happened after that court decision?
Well, even though the ruling was massive, it's not like racism just disappeared overnight, Change doesn't always happen that fast. It was more like, imagine a domino effect. The Montgomery Bus Boycott, that was the first domino to fall, and it started this chain reaction, but there were still a lot more dominoes to go. The fight for civil rights, it wasn't over. Not a chance.
So how did that ruling change the movement?
Well, for one, it showed everyone what was possible. The Montgomery Bus Boycott, it was like a blueprint. It showed the world that, when people stand up together peacefully but firmly, things can change. This victory, it gave courage to other activists, to other communities all across the South. It made them think, hey, we can challenge segregation too, not just on buses, but everywhere.
It's incredible that one local boycott could have such a huge impact, that it could inspire those big moments that we all know from the Civil Rights Movement, the sit-ins, the freedom rides, the March on Washington. Just like you said,
Yeah.
a chain reaction. That one spark, it started a fire that just kept spreading.
And you can't talk about Montgomery without talking about Dr. King. His leadership, how he always stuck to nonviolence, that changed everything.
Right. He got that from Gandhi, right? That idea of peaceful resistance.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about being peaceful, was it? It was a strategy, right?
Absolutely. By meeting hate with love, with understanding, with peace, even when others were violent, they did something incredibly powerful. They showed everyone how brutal segregation really was, and at the same time, they took the moral high ground.
So it wasn't passive at all, huh? He
Yeah.
was courageous, strategic. It took so much strength to keep going through all that, to face that kind of hate and not fight back the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have done that.
It's really amazing, you know? It shows you the strength of the human spirit, how resilient people can be. And think about it. Because they chose nonviolence, it made it so much harder for the people in power, the people who wanted to keep segregation, to defend what they were doing. How do you justify hurting someone who's being completely peaceful?
You can't. It put them in such a bad light, those who were against the boycott, and it forced people to see how wrong, how truly awful segregation and all that racial injustice was.
Exactly. And this wasn't happening in a bubble. The whole world was watching.
You're talking about the news, right?
Yeah.
How important was the media coverage during all this?
Oh, incredibly important. The media, the newspapers, the newsreels, they showed what was happening in Montgomery to the entire country, to the world. And that made a huge difference. People saw how determined, how dignified the protesters were, and it got people talking, got them involved. It reminds you how important a free press is, how they can shine a light on injustice and give a voice to the people who are fighting for what's right.
And it reminds us that we all have access to information now and ways to share it. We have a voice. But back then, they faced challenges that are hard to even imagine, and they never gave up. So looking back at it all, what were the most important things we learned from the Montgomery Bus Boycott? What made it such a crucial moment in the fight for civil rights?
So many lessons, so many things we can still learn from today. But I think the biggest one is, the most important one, is the power of unity. When people come together, when they decide to act as one, they can make real change happen.
It's like you said, that power of collective action. You know, when people find that shared purpose and they say, enough is enough, we're doing this together.
Right. And the Black community in Montgomery, they got that. They lived it. They were willing to deal with so much, inconvenience, disruptions for over a year because they knew what they were doing mattered. Every single one of them. Sacrificing, adding their piece to something much, much bigger.
It really makes you think, about what we can accomplish when we work together, when we have that shared goal. If they could do that for that long, what are we capable of?
That's the question, isn't it? And it wasn't just about acting together. They also had a plan. They had leaders like Dr. King who inspired them, got them moving. That's crucial. You need that to make a movement work.
It's like you need the map and the energy to follow it. And speaking of fuel, Dr. King's commitment to nonviolence, that had such a huge impact, not just in Montgomery, but everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. And that wasn't just him being, a good person. It was smart. Choosing nonviolence, that disarmed their opponents. It showed the world how brutal things were, and it made people sympathize. It made them want to join the cause.
It's like sometimes taking the high road, it makes a bigger impact. It makes you think about how we deal with conflict in our own lives.
Yeah.
It takes guts to choose peace over anger, to try to understand, instead of wanting to get even.
You got it. And that idea, that nonviolent resistance, it's still inspiring people today. Look at Black Lives Matter, the climate activists. It's still going. Montgomery showed us that even when things seem impossible, change can happen. We can make it happen.
And so much of what they were fighting for back then, it's still relevant today. It's like their fight, it paved the way for so many others.
That's the thing about Montgomery, right? It wasn't just about buses. It was about something we all deserve. Dignity, equality, respect. Those are things worth fighting for. Always.
Their story reminds us that we all have a part to play, in making the world a better place, a fairer place. But it doesn't just happen on its own. It takes bravery, dedication, and being willing to stand up, even when it's tough.
And you know what else? It usually starts small. Just like Rosa Parks on that bus, one act, one moment, it changed the course of history. The things we do, even if they seem small, they can ripple out. further than we can imagine.
So as we finish up our deep dive here into the Montgomery Bus Boycott, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
The next time you see a bus, any bus, remember, it's not just a way to get around, it represents something bigger. It represents the power everyday people have to make extraordinary changes when they find their voice, when they come together, and when they refuse to be silenced. It's a call to action, We all have that power in us. So what will you do to make a difference?
What a powerful question to end on. And that is it for this deep dive into the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history, and until next time, remember, stay curious and keep exploring.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Hutchings History. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.